Okay, well, guys, that didn't take long. We've got a new tornado warning now. Let me zoom back in here. It covers parts of southeast Broward here, is that storm I was talking about there just a second ago, and that's in effect now until 8:15 p.m. The tornado was, a possible tornado was indicated, and let me just pull up my graphic back here again. So possible tornado was located over Hallandale, moving northwest at 25 miles an hour. You can see the rotation there, and what's happening here in the National Weather Service, who issues the local warnings, is saying that they're going to be issuing a flash flood warning as well because these storms are kind of repeatedly going across the same area. You can see it there. This is part of a feeder band that is set up, and I think a few days ago, the last several days I've been talking about, we don't want to get set up under one of these feeder bands because with the storm right now moving closer to us, it means these feeder bands will keep slowly moving away, but eventually as the storm parallels us and gets north of us, then some of these bands potentially could get set up right over us. And this pretty strong looking signature there, at least on what we call the velocity data here. Velocity is, I mean the reflectivity. The reflectivity is how intense the rain is, and you can make out the hook there. For a long time before Doppler radars were around, the hook signature, the hook echo, that was what people watched there. That's another statement there. We got a lot of statements coming in right now. That's what people looked for. But once we got Doppler radar, then we were able to kind of see what the wind was doing, if it was blowing towards or away from the radar. So from here, let me try a different radar because you can't really see it. Okay, you can see it better there from the Fort Lauderdale radar. So what we're looking at here is the reds indicate wind that's blowing away, and the greens indicate wind that's blowing towards the radar. So in this case, our possible tornado is in that area right there. First, it was reported possibly near Hallandale Beach, but now moving towards Hollywoods as well as Pembroke Pines, Hollywood and Pembroke Pines under this threat. And you can see the whole polygon here extends, covering much of southeast Broward and back into central Broward as that storm moves to the west. And you know what I think I'm going to do, as opposed to starting and stopping the stream, I'm just going to keep the stream up, and then I will jump on if we need to. I'll be sitting in the chat watching here and updating everybody as we go if I need to pop on here. But I feel like what's going to happen is that people who kind of tune in, and then if I drop them, then they tune back in. So what we're going to do is we're just going to keep the stream up here going forward, and letting everybody know where the tornado threat is. I'm going to just put the radar on loop here. Once again, if you are in Broward County, in this area here, basically Hallandale Beach, but it's probably past Hallandale Beach now, Hollywood, Pembroke Pines, Cooper City, once again Davie, there is the threat of a tornado based on what radar is showing moving to the northwest there. So folks in this area, your phone has probably gone off. You need to move to an interior room and get away from windows and stay out that way. Okay, so this actually shows up a little bit better here from this radar point of view. It could be that the signature is getting stronger. So there is our tornado signature. And we're going to zoom on in here and see there's the whole warning, and zooming on in here. So basically, there's like Playland Estates, Driftwood Acres, Hollywood Beach Gardens, and then kind of moving to the west there. So there's 441. So crossing 441 there. Looks like we'll be crossing Griffin eventually, Sheridan, as well as Sterling, Hollywood Boulevard, also right now in the path of this. Actually, it's passing right over Hollywood Boulevard and going to be moving on to the northwest. So kind of these areas right here and moving to the northwest. I'll be monitoring the chat. I'll be right here, and if there's any updates at all, I will jump back on and show you. Okay, well, we just got an update. So tornado warning for northern Miami-Dade is canceled. So that was where the warning was initially issued, and tornadic thunderstorm, which prompted the warnings, moved out the warned area. So now it's just mainly in Broward. So we'll keep the stream up here and let you guys, and I'll jump back in the second that we see something, but we're going to keep the stream going here. Okay, so an update here. Tornado warning remains in effect until 8:15 for southern Broward. At 7:54, a confirmed tornado was located over Chambers Estates or near Hollywood, moving northwest at 25 miles an hour. So that is another confirmed tornado now, and you can see our radar signature is getting better on that confirmed tornado. So if you're in Davie, once again, you're in the warning for this second tornado coming your way, and that is moving towards Davie, Cooper City as well. Some specific communities in the path of it. Cooper City, as well as not quite Sunshine Acres, Ferncrest Village. You're in the path of it as well. So there is the tornadic storm that's moving to the northwest. That yellow marker there, that indicates the center of the rotation. We can also see it on shear here, but the shear, unfortunately, is a little bit delayed. It's not quite as up to date here. There, our little marker just disappeared. That's okay. We're still able to see it in what we call the velocity data there. Let's check one other angle. So yeah, so it shows up nicely there as well. I say nicely because it's got a strong signature right there, continuing to move to the northwest there, moving to the northwest. And if you, by all means, jump on the chat if you see or hear the wind, really coming up, and you're in this tornado warning. And you can do so safely. Let me know. Of course, remember our tornado warning rules are interior room in a house away from windows until the storm is passed. So that's that storm right there. Unfortunately, I think this was kind of maybe what we were expecting. So now there's a new circulation. Let me change our projection here, the way we look at this, because everybody's used to looking at it like that. So you can see very, very clearly what we would call a tornado hook there. Let me back up a little bit. There it is, right there. The tornado hook is because the rotation of the storm, the rotation in the storm is pulling rain around it. The way that these tornadoes are moving, the angle that they're moving, they are going to be extremely hard to spot daytime or night. Basically, it's going to rain really hard in this tornado warning area, and then all of a sudden the tornado will come in. So if you're in the area where it's raining real hard in the tornado warning, and then the rain starts to stop, that's when you could be near the tornado here, especially now Davie, also Hollywood. So if it was raining really hard and then it's come to a stop, that's where the tornado would be located, right there. So if it's still on the ground, we don't know that. So let's move forward here through time. Now what's happening is that another storm is kind of tending to overtake this storm, and as that storm overtakes this storm, it's going to maybe be disruptive to that tornadic circulation. So we'll definitely have to watch for that. There's more storms down here. In fact, the storms are really picking up. And what's happening now is we're getting into what we call training, which is where storms continue to go over the same area, one after the other. And that is a very, very significant flood situation. That's a flood indicator when you get these supercells like these are going over the same area. So, all right, once again, approaching, so past now Playland Estates, and now moving up towards 595 once again. So there's Griffin Road, so soon to be crossing Griffin Road. So basically, if you are west of 441 and near Griffin Road, all the way west to about Flamingo, you are right under where that tornadic circulation is, showing up right there. Okay, so that was a tornado warning for the west coast of Florida there, near Naples, as storms are really popping up here. We kind of expected this. The tornado watch has been in effect for much of the day, and now we're starting to get these tornado warnings. Let's drop that warning off the screen so that it doesn't interfere with what we're talking about here. And as soon as I see another update from the National Weather Service, of course, I'll bring it to you. Okay, so it looks like, once again, radar confirmation of the tornado warning. That was a little bit earlier, and right now we're just waiting on any new information. And once again, remember, in a tornado warning, that's for Collier County, that alert, in a tornado warning, you want to get to an interior room in the center of your home away from windows. And with these storms, excuse me, with these storms, the way they're configured here, so they're moving to the northwest, and so the heavy rain part comes first, and then the tornado follows the heavy rain in this case. So these are going to be really hard to see. The rain's going to stop here in central Broward now, moving into Davie, and when the rain stops, that's where the potential tornado is. Let's move a little bit to the northwest here. So basically west of 441, now near University, approaching Griffin there, and then eventually on to the west here, potentially Flamingo on the north-south road there. So I'm going to drop off for just a second here. I'm not going to leave. We're going to leave the stream up. We're going to keep the radar up so everybody knows what's going on. And I will be back in just a minute. If there's any updates, I'll jump back on because I need to we need to get ready for the 8 o'clock update. It's 8 o'clock. So guess what? I'm not going to jump off. We'll kind of do what we call join this in progress. So let's begin here. So we don't have really technically a new advisory, but we have the 8 o'clock advisory, which is the intermediate advisory, and now because the hurricane is in radar range, we're also getting 1 hourly advisory. So no changes with the watches and warnings on that advisory. Let me check here our chat real quick. The new advisory. Okay, so yeah, so let's talk about that. In closed captioning or speak up. What is wrong with my microphone? I can see that I've got audio levels, but I think what I'm doing is I'm talking softer because I'm trying to preserve the voice. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to boost it a little bit here. Can that help? Hopefully you guys can hear me a little bit better because I am talking softer. So just a quick statement from the National Weather Service. And the tornado warning remains in effect until 8:15. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado located near Nova Southeast University, once again, where we already had a confirmed tornado moving to the northwest. And so it'll be moving through areas such as Plantation as well as Davie there. And there you can kind of see our marker. Now, we're beginning to lose the signature in what we call the reflectivity a little bit, but we still have it showing up. And by the way, guys, on my audio, I ordered a better microphone, so we're going to take care of that problem right away as soon as it arrives. So there's the signature. It still jumps out right there, showing up on the radar. And so now, basically coming up now to 595 there, eastern parts of Davie, once again, just to the west of 441. Let's see a different angle here. And yeah, you can see from both angles there showing up. So no other updates right now from the National Weather Service. And for those who are joining us, of course, the thing is that if you're in the tornado warning, you want to move to an interior room away from windows, okay? So that's the latest update right there. So now crossing Griffin, moving towards Flamingo. So folks, basically if you are north of Griffin, south of 595 right now, and basically east of 75, you are potentially in this tornadic storm or under it right there. Right, Plantation near Nob Hill. Okay, glad the audio is better, folks. Plantation near Nob Hill, 595. We've got somebody there who's watching. And so tornadic debris signature, let's check on that because that's from the National Weather Service. The tornadic debris signature is something that we see when we have tornadoes. And I don't see it now anymore, but let me back up here. So yeah, you can see it there just briefly tornadic debris signature. So tornadic debris signature, what happens is that right there, is that the tornado begins to pick up debris from the ground. I'm sorry, I've got to show you guys what I'm talking about here. Tornado picks up debris from the ground, and it shows up on the radar. It gets picked up. So that was associated right. You can see there's the marker. There's the debris signature right there, and actually got pretty impressive. So not surprised that there was probably damage here, especially Pembroke Park, Hollywood, Eastern Pembroke Pines, Playland Estates, that whole area there. We had a pretty good tornadic debris signature right there. So certainly something we're going to have to watch now the rest of the evening for additional tornadoes. There's no new debris signature. So the thing about the tornadic debris signature is that it's kind of one of those after the fact things that after the tornado has touched down and is doing damage, that's when you get the tornadic debris signature. If it's a long track tornado, then you can track the tornado by the tornadic debris signature. But if it's a brief touchdown like this one was, probably only a few miles in the big scheme of things, then they're harder to track with that tornadic debris signature. All right, so I think because that signature, let's check one more time. I think because it's weakening, I think we can drop off of it and go ahead and talk about our advisory here. Let's take one last peek at it there. So yeah, so it looks like it's weakening a little bit. There's still some reds in there which indicate winds blowing away from the radar. And now the National Weather Service is issuing a flash flood warning. Let me show you that. So this is for northern Miami-Dade County in southeast Florida. So this is going to be a pretty big area as well. Flash flooding caused by thunderstorms, and this includes Miami, Miami Beach, Surfside, Miami Gardens, North Miami Beach, Aventura, Sunny Isles Beach, Opelika, Miami Shores, Westview, North Bay Village, El Portal, Golden Glades, Pinewood, Otis, Little Haiti, Hard Rock Stadium. That's for the flash flood warning. So if you don't have to be out this evening, by all means, don't head out. We can once again look at the reflectivity, and then we're going to talk about our storm here, our hurricane. So once again, there is the storm. Let's take a quick look at if there's any additional shear markers upstream right now. There's the flash flood warning, by the way. There is a little bit of a shear marker there at North Miami Beach. So we're going to come back to that. Let's talk about the storm here and what's going on, kind of an 8 o'clock update here. And it's a new advisory, but it's not a new forecast track. The forecast track comes in every 6 hours unless there's a significant change where they have to update the forecast track. If you were here earlier, so I'm getting gusty winds now from my guy, from one of our chatters here who is in near Nob Hill. So you're right by that circulation. So the gusty winds, Nob Hill and 595, not surprising there. We're going to see some power outages with this stuff too. So once again, as we talked about earlier, the forecast advisories change every 6 hours unless there's a big change in something significant that would cause them to change the forecast advisory. But once again, what we are seeing here, and you can see here, we're now with these hourly updates, there's little wobbles along the track, but you see this bend right here, right there to right there. So this is the first 12-hour part of the forecast, and then the rest of that line is the 12 to 24-hour part. But the reason that this line is bending here is because the computer program is trying to adjust for this little bit of more of a not so much northeast movement, but more of a northeast movement. So this is what we call right of track, and it looks like once again Ian is trying to work to the right of track. I think at 11 a.m. I could not stress harder, I hope I stressed it hard enough, that this puts enormous hurricane potential for the southwest coast of Florida. For Marco Island, for Naples, for Bonita Springs, for Fort Myers, Port Charlotte, even as far north as Sarasota, because there's a big storm here. It doesn't take Tampa out of the woods. Tampa has not dodged a bullet. You never say you dodge a bullet when there is something that is heading your way, and this ferocious, I guess, for lack of a better word. As you can see in the structure here, it has gradually evolved now. Let me stop the loop here, and we'll talk about the center here and what's going on with that center rotation there. So you might think that it's kind of coming apart here. What's going on is it's in the middle of what we call an eye wall replacement cycle. Let me just make sure that's, no, that's not for us, that's for Collier County. Folks in Collier County, if it is heading to big cities, I'll let you know, but that I think is out in, okay, so it's a cancellation of the tornado warning in Collier County. Guys, I can't do tornado warnings for the whole state, so we're going to stick with Southeast Florida and the Keys for tornado warnings, and we're going to talk about the hurricane for everybody. So what's happened is that the inner eye wall here is falling apart because we're going through what we call an eye wall replacement cycle. If you look on the internet and you see people talking, they will say ERC, eye wall replacement cycle. It's just the flood watch, continues in effect. So an eye wall replacement cycle is where the inner eye wall is going and going, and then through processes that we are still learning about and studying, a strong band of winds forms outside of the inner eye wall, and in many cases it begins to take over and it starves the inner eye wall. So the inner eye wall then is falling apart, the outer eye wall becomes dominant. Sometimes it pauses the intensification. The real bad thing is that, okay, so we're having some damage reports near a home, patio torn off a home south of Taft and University. Some tornado damage there. What happens is that the outer eye wall now, even though the intensity may have paused, the outer eye wall now is a bigger representation of the hurricane. And then what's likely going to happen is that inner eye wall continues to deteriorate, is that the hurricane is going to start shrinking once again as it continues its intensification trend. And then we're dealing, unfortunately, with a bigger hurricane with a bigger wind field as well. Estimating how much more it's gone east since 5 p.m., that's kind of tough. Let's see here. Let me see if I can try to estimate that. Unfortunately, what happens with my program here is that because it's also used on TV, people don't want to say, well, you do want to see where the previous track is, but it's kind of like saying, here's where we are now, here's where we're going, and so it kind of compensates there. The previous track, I believe, it wasn't that far away. It was just right over there. So once again, we're seeing this gradual kind of motion here that's trying to trend to the right of track. Let's talk about the 8 o'clock. This is the intermediate advisory. Once again, this is not an update on the forecast track. The next one of those we'll get is at 11. And of course, when I show the cone here, the thing that we show, that my graphic shows, I built this just for this purpose, is that the storm is much bigger than where the cone, which is tracking just a point, is. I know those of you who have tuned in many times, I was saying, Craig, you say it every single time, because there's always new people joining us. So once again, there's the forecast. That's through 2 a.m. and then through 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. You can see the tropical storm winds. That's the area in yellow. That has spread throughout South Florida now, as well as the Keys and up the East Coast, as well as up the West Coast, and the hurricane conditions are coming ashore. Now, if it continues these little wobbles and trends to the right a little bit more, then obviously that's going to bring the brunt of hurricane conditions farther to the south on the southwest coast towards Naples. And we've talked about this earlier because a lot of folks, of course, in Southeast Florida are saying, can it just like take a hook to the right? Can it just suddenly like just go off course and go to the right? That can't happen because the hurricane, despite how uncertain the predictions have been with it and the models, the hurricane is still governed by laws of thermodynamics and kinematics and things like that. So there are no wind solutions that would have it turn to the right. Some of the model solutions that showed more of a right track, they were for if all of a sudden it became very weak, like barely a Category 1 or a tropical storm. That's not going to happen. It's a very deep storm in the atmosphere, so no sudden turns to the right. That being said, little turns to the right are possible, and we still can't rule out that these wobbles to the right cease. They stop for a while, and we kind of reestablished more of a track back towards the Tampa Bay area. Jamie Rome, the acting director of the National Hurricane Center, was emphatic today when he said, Tampa, you are not out of this yet. So for everybody in Tampa, you've got to stay vigilant. This is way too early to be saying we dodged a bullet. Nobody has dodged a bullet yet. Wait till the storm is passed, and then you can tell me you dodged the bullet. There is the So this is Wednesday night. This is tomorrow night after midnight, 2 a.m. Thursday, and then going on to the northeast there's 2 p.m. on Thursday, and then on Friday. And you can see the hurricane conditions. So the whole storm is outside of the cone now, and it's really kind of deceptive if you look at the cone and you're saying, well, the cone's not even anywhere near us. In South Florida or in Naples, it's close to Naples, but the whole storm is much bigger than the cone. So once again, another reminder, please remember what the cone shows. It shows a point. It doesn't show the storm. And then let's zoom on out here because it's on up into southeast Georgia there, and that's for the weekend. And then finally, I think we'll be done with it. There's the latest warnings, hurricane warnings all the way through Orlando, so much of central, west, and southwest Florida under hurricane warnings now. And hurricane watches for eastern Collier up through Glades and up to Lake Okeechobee. Hurricane watches there. Now we're going to have to be concerned here. There's this thing known as a seiche, which is where the wind, when it blows across a big lake very, very hard, it sets up an oscillation, almost like if you had like a little cup or something, like a little bowl, a very shallow bowl. And if you blew on it and blew on it and blew on it, it kind of rocks the water. Well, that's a very small example of that. The lake, because it's so big and it's relatively shallow, it tends to do the same thing, and that term for that is a seiche. And it seiches back and forth, and so folks along the border of the lake, that's why Herbert Hoover put up the dike around the lake because of the catastrophic loss in the 1928 hurricane. But so we're always fearful of when there's a potential hurricane moving near or across the lake and that seiche effect. All right, let's see, is this for, okay, Central Collier County still. So this is located over North Naples or near Naples, moving northwest at 25 miles an hour. So folks in Naples, into your shelter, into your interior room, away from windows, and let's wait till this storm gets past. That's for Naples, there with that tornado warning over on the west coast. Okay, so back to our storm. That's the wind thing, and remember, if you're, in my opinion, what this storm is, if you're in a hurricane watch or warning, you should have shutters up by all means. If you're in the tropical storm warning area, you should secure anything that can blow around, loose items, things like that. Power outages, there's going to be some power outages in the tropical storm warning areas. Probably not quite as widespread as Irma, as we saw in Irma or Wilma, for that matter, in southeast Florida, but we're going to see some power outages. So you know what, tonight, get your flashlights handy, put them by your bed or put them where you can find them quickly if the power goes out. And if it goes out, then you're kind of set. Do I think for South Florida, Southeast Florida, this is going to be a long duration power outage event? I don't think so. I think this is going to be sporadic power outages. A few unfortunate folks may catch a bit longer power outage. During Wilma, it's this concrete pole, an old concrete pole, about at the corner of my block, blew down without power for 2 weeks. And I kept seeing the power trucks drive by, and I literally wanted to get out there with flags and say, just fix this one pole here, because it was 2 weeks of there's no hot water unless you have a gas heat, no power, but you make do, right? Okay, so let's talk also. So for the hurricane warning areas, that is the area where you put up the shutters. If you're in the storm surge area, that's the area where you need to get out of the storm surge zone. This is not a evacuate across the state or anything, although I know many folks have. This is more of a get out of the water zone, the zone where the water comes in. It's deadly, and it could be very, very high in some places. The storm surge warning runs all the way from Cedar Key all the way down to the southern part of the Florida Peninsula there, and storm surge watches are in effect for Key Largo, Key West through Marathon as well. Let's see what's going on here, and what we're getting messages from NHC storm surge here, current conditions, the southernmost point tonight, that's from Key West, and they're posting that on Twitter, and I don't see any other like sudden bulletins. I'll show you this feed here of all the stuff that I see coming in. So tropical storm conditions reported in Marathon. Winds gusting to 36. Let's go through a few other of these for the folks in the Keys. Crawl Key, weather flow recorded south-southeast wind, gust to 47. Some others here. That's Key Colony Beach, a wind gust to 54 miles an hour. So the wind's really coming up in the Keys. There is the North Perry Airport at Broward. That's the one that's the tornado damage near 1 mile north of North Perry Airport there. So, and let's see if there's anything else here. Alligator Reef Light, south of the Middle Keys there, southeast at 39. So let's just kind of chat with everybody here on the stream and answer some questions, take a little bit of time here, kind of regroup. The one thing, I did TV for 37 years, 25 in Florida, and the one thing when you're in a hurricane is that you can hand off to somebody else and have somebody else talk for a while, and you get a break and you can kind of regroup. That's not the case when you're solo operation here. I am producer, director, writer, and also talent, as they might say. All right, 20 inches of rain on the West Coast. Yeah, that's from the Storm Prediction Center, or from the Weather Prediction Center, I should say. And let me see if I can find that graphic. Let's point that out, because that is one of the predictions there from the Weather Prediction Center. And you can find the graphic yourself as well if you go to wpc.noaa.ncep.noaa.gov, but it should come up. So let's talk about this here. This is the that's not the one I want. I want this one. So that is the rainfall potential there. So that purplish area there, that's the high risk of flash flooding. You can see the rest of South Florida and North Florida as well is in the moderate risk. The high risk area could see spots of 20 inches of rain. So this, unfortunately, is going to be probably one of the worst multi-hazard hurricanes that we've ever had, that we had in generations. Let me put it that way. It's going to be a large part of Florida. We're going to have hurricane force winds over a large part of Florida. We're going to have tropical storm conditions over the remainder of Florida, maybe not the western panhandle or the panhandle. We're going to have storm surge on both coasts, and we're going to have significant flooding that could trap people for days. I mean, your access to roads and stuff could be cut off for days. That's why when we talk about the hurricane kit, I always say 5 days, have 5 days worth of food and have 5 gallons of water per person, because what we want to do is we want to have enough drinking water, because a lot of times when areas lose power, okay, that's another thing coming in from Key West reporting on the wind conditions. So when you lose power, the water pressure sometimes will drop, and when the water pressure drops, then you have boil water orders, and then it's typically not safe to drink the water if there's a boil water, or if the pressure drops so low that you don't have any water at all. I know a lot of folks have wells as well there. So kind of summarizing here, let's talk about what's going on once again real quickly. So we have the flash flood warning for much of northeast and eastern Miami-Dade. You can see the storms moving through there. Let me take that off for a second so we can kind of see what's going on underneath here. And let me slow us down a little bit too. Okay, so quite a bit of lightning here with these storms now working their way. This is basically north of 595. If I take off the what we call the reflectivity, you can see those little colored areas. That's areas of rotation or wind shear. That big yellow thing there, that's a storm marker for rotation. And right now we don't have any areas that looks like a significant rotation out there, so that's good. But once again, very strong storm here lifting to the north. This has been our area of rotation here in Broward, and if you look carefully here, you can almost see kind of a little bit of turning there at that last image there. So that the atmosphere is just very, very what we call favorably sheared, a favorable wind profile for tornadoes. So folks saying definitely going to flood where they are. Yeah, you know what? I've already had, I think, 6-7 inches of rain. I'm in Weston, so I've had a lot there. And I think, you know what, this thing is coming together here. So we might see another tornado warning. What I'm talking about here is, let me change our radars here just so we can kind of slice it with the radar a little bit here. And I'm going to go back to what we call velocity. Velocity is where we're looking at the wind coming to and away from the radar. And let's get our references here one more time. So it's this area. It showed up a little bit better from the Miami radar. sometimes looking at something from different radars. So it's this area down here. So let's kind of, let me draw here and we'll leave a mark there and let's look at it from different radars. So this, you're kind of sitting behind the scenes of what what a radar operator does when they're tracking a storm. So there's not much rotation coming from the Miami radar. Let's the National Weather Service radar. Let's check a different radar. So that's coming from the terminal Doppler. This is near the Hard Rock Casino that's out there at Chrome Avenue in Tamiami Trail. And let's check one more radar. That's the terminal Doppler radar for Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood. So it doesn't really show up as much rotation here, but after you look at and see enough of these things, and you see kind of a radar signature that has that kind of that what looks like it wants to twist, then you kind of pay attention there. Let's flip our radars around here one more time. So yeah, that's a pretty good. So this to me is a little bit concerning here. So once again, now we're in Plantation, Melrose Park, Sunrise here, and this is the thing. The way that these storms are moving. So severe thunderstorms, what we call supercells, where there's rotation, persistent rotation in the updraft, that defines a supercell. So usually if they're moving to the east or northeast and you're east of it and looking back at it, you can see a tornado coming. In this case, because these are moving to the northwest, what's happening is that if you're standing, say here, you're in the heavy rain, you can't see anything coming. So by the time that this area, this clear area down here where the potential tornado is, gets to you, you're like, oh, that was heavy rain. Thank goodness that's over. And then boom, there's the tornado. So it's kind of a serious situation, just from the way that these storms are forming and the way that they're oriented in this very, very strong wind shear flow here. So let's talk a few questions. So is the eye going to recycle? Yeah. For people who are just joining us, we talked about that. So the eye is going through what we call an eye wall replacement cycle, which means that the inner eye, and I can show you that real quickly here. So flash flood warning, let me just check that real quickly here. For central Broward County. So now Broward under flash flood warning as well. You can see it right there. Let me turn off the radar. So there's the flash flood warning. So folks in this area, we've had repeated tornadoes and now this persistent rainfall. Stay home in this area. The parts of these areas in central Broward floods very easily. There's the flash flood warning for Miami-Dade as well. So let's drop down and talk about, once again, this eye wall replacement cycle and what it means. Unfortunately, it means that we will potentially deal with a bigger hurricane. It's kind of ragged there because the outer eye wall has formed, the inner eye wall is falling apart, and the hurricane right now is kind of in that rebalancing act with its wind field and its pressure distribution as well. It's always, you see an eye wall replacement cycle out in the ocean, and it's an amazing thing. You see it as it's approaching land, and it's a terrifying thing because it basically means the hurricane is growing in probably a big way. Before, when we had that compact eye wall, we had more of a Charlie-like hurricane, which was extreme. Okay, that's Collier County, so that's in southwest Florida. Let me just call off the cities here real quickly. So tornado warning for Naples, Golden Gate Estates, Naples Park, West Tollgate on Alligator Alley and Vineyards, and that's in effect for Naples until 9 p.m. this evening. Tornado warning for Naples. Okay, and that's for Broward. So let's go back to that. Now, you'll note here that on my crawl here at the bottom, the until time seems to be wrong for some reason. So I'm going to try to work on that. But a lot of this stuff happens so quickly that when it happens quickly and you're kind of adjusting things, let me zoom in here, and you're adjusting things, you don't get everything adjusted in time. So that's the new tornado warning there. Let me turn off the radar here just so we can see the area. So it's just right on the edge of Parkland. You can see the marker there that showed up, and it's paralleling US 27, but just on the edge there of Broward County, near Parkland there in northwest Broward. So that's the other side of the Sawgrass Expressway there, where we're looking there, right there. So, and that tornado warning's in effect. So basically, it's not going to really affect anybody in Broward because it is moving away. Let's take a quick look at the radar there. Let me stop it here and we'll do a little radar analysis once again. So let's use that radar. So what happens is with these terminal oh wow, so there's a pretty good signature. So basically these are the outbound winds, these are the inbound winds. So we've got maybe 1 or 2 tornadic circulations there. Kind of hard to tell. There's a lot going on there. Thankfully this is over the Everglades, so we're not going to have to worry about that impacting very many people at all. So let's go back here. What I was saying briefly about the terminal Doppler radars. So if you drive on the Sawgrass Expressway near Sawgrass Mills Mall or BB&T Center, it's not the BB&T Center it is anymore. If you drive in that area, you'll see that big, looks like a golf ball over there by Markham Park. That's the terminal Doppler radar for Fort Lauderdale, and basically it's to help the airport there with wind shear and things like that. But we can also use it to track storms and things like that. And so it does pretty well with what we call velocity, which is what you're looking at right now. It doesn't do as well with what we call reflectivity. Let me put that up. The reflectivity, that's the intensity of the rain. And the reason it doesn't do as well is because the radar operates at a bandwidth that kind of, when it rains on the radar itself, it doesn't see the rain away from the radar quite as well. It still works, and it does very well for what it's supposed to do, but it's a little bit different from the National Weather Service radar in Doppler, in Southwest Miami-Dade. There's another little storm marker there. This, I think, is the storm we were talking about a little bit earlier here. So you can see there's the terminal Doppler radar, and that, let's see if there's some shear. So the shear factors here, and let me turn off our watch warnings for right now so don't have too much on the screen. So the shear markers here, they are combined from multiple radars, which radar sees where the shear is. And you can see this bluish area here in Broward right now. That's lower shear than the tornadic storms, and up there you can see where there's the potential for the tornado with that shear up there, but it's lower shear. Let's zoom out because the hurricane's not going to do anything significant over the next 10-20 minutes here and see, is there anything upstream of us? It doesn't look like it. Let me make sure we're using and let's use a radar that kind of has some distance here, the Miami radar. So yeah, there's still some stuff out there. The activity is slowly lifting to the north, and we've still got this feature here. So this hooky looking thing, this jumps right out at me because, and this may be broad rotation here, but once again, that is something that I am always suspicious of right there. Let me zoom in a little bit more on that. So we're talking Tamarack, we're talking Sunrise, Lauderhill, and heading to the northwest there. So that's just a little, it just kind of bothers me a little bit the way it looks. So that is that. So after this area of activity moves on to the north here into Palm Beach County, I think we might have a break. You can see, now look, you can see there, if you look at that area where that little yellow marker is right there at the end, you can kind of make out the broad rotation. Things are trying to rotate because of the wind profile in the atmosphere. And all these storms are kind of exhibiting what we call deviant motion, which means the wind's blowing this way, but these storms are going off the wind in different directions there. Let's back up here just a little bit. Let me check the chat, make sure that I'm streaming. That, of course, is the most important thing. Otherwise, I've spent another long period of time just talking to myself. So Pompano, Thunder and Lightning, that was a little bit earlier as well. Quiet so far in Largo, not Key Largo, Largo. Largo's in Pinellas County. Thanks for that update, Christina. Hopefully you are shuttered up in Largo and Pinellas County in the Tampa Bay area. How much further east has the hurricane gone? We kind of talked about that. It's probably about 5 miles off its track there. Lauderhill, get it hard. So if we're talking about the storms right now, it's storming pretty good, about to stop there in Lauderhill, coming to an end there as this rain kind of passes on out. But in terms of, I'll turn that storm track off there, and let me zoom out here just a little bit. We're kind of focused on Broward now. It's going up into the Palm Beaches, but all the action so far for tornadoes looks like it's been mostly in Broward so far. So when we talk about how hard are we going to get hit, are we going to get hit hard? Uh, there's people think different ways about the weather. We're going to get hit right now, and people have different levels of what hard is. Some people, when there's a bad thunderstorm, it's black outside, there's a lot of lightning and a little bit of rain, that's a bad thunderstorm. Some people, the wind has to blow 60 miles an hour for it to be a bad thunderstorm. So we all have different levels and interpretations of what is bad or what is hard. I think Broward County, we're going to have some power outages. Okay, so the Broward County warning is canceled because it's moved out of Broward County. So good news there. It's kind of moving over the. Now this is some farmland up here in Palm Beach County there. So these are communities up there, kind of west of, say, Wellington, places like that up there. So Wellington's a little further to the north. So you can see all these things. If you kind of stare at those storms there, you can see they're kind of rotating as they go. Right there, it shows up quite well. So we're going to keep the radar right here for right now, just in case anything forms right there in Broward. So once again, everybody has a different kind of level of what is being hit hard. So once again, Broward, Miami-Dade, Palm Beaches, some power outages, a lot of rain, flooding, people who will get hit hard. Naples north, basically, Naples north to the Tampa Bay area. That's where I think it's going to be the hardest. Let's take a look at the velocity once again here while we're on this storm and see what we see, if there's any kind of signs of rotation there. Doesn't really jump out, does it? Because if you look up here, you can see there's the green next to the red, so that rotation jumps out. Doesn't jump out so much in Broward. Let's look, we just check one different radar angle there. Nope, not as much. So here's a little, but that's backwards, so that doesn't matter. I was going to say the green next to the red. The green and the red have to be next to each other on the right side of each other with respect to the radar. Okay, so that's where we stand right now. Tornado watch, the tornado threat is over for Davie. The tornado threat for the moment is over for Broward. We're kind of just in a steady state here. We will continue to watch. Let's zoom out once again, see is there anything coming our way. Pretty good little thunderstorm off there. Does it have any shear with it? A little bit of shear with it. You can see a little bit of the light blues there showing a little bit of shear. We'll watch that. Thunderstorm coming into Pompano now, pretty strong there. Heavy downpours, we'll watch that as well. Any shear with that? And cursory look shows not much shear with that as well. You can see the shear with the tornado warning up there, moving on out of the area. So let me turn the storm markers, storm tracks back on. Yeah, so kind of jumped down there a little bit, but that's not, it was so brief, that was not concerning. Okay, so I guess the National Weather Service, here we are. So we were talking about tornado warning for this thing that I was suspicious about. How about that? It kind of surprised me there because we weren't seeing really strong rotation on the radar, but so now new tornado warning. This covers Sunrise, Coral Springs, Tamarack as well. So, well, didn't expect that because we were looking right at it and I said I was suspicious of it, and I kept saying I was suspicious of it and I was suspicious of it, and I thought, well, they're not doing anything with it, the National Weather Service that is. And then we looked at the different radars and didn't see much rotation, but let's take a closer look. Maybe we missed something. So that radar doesn't show much. So there's a little bit there that's very close to the radar site itself, so hard to say. And the reasoning here, severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado over Sunrise, moving northwest at 20. So so that's that storm there, but as I was saying, it looked suspicious. It doesn't show much of rotational in terms of the winds showing up by the radar, the Doppler radar part of it, but you can kind of see what we look for, which is that kind of hook-like looking thing. So basically Sunrise, Tamarack now, right along the Sawgrass Expressway there, right at the turn there. That's where it looks like that tornado could potentially be. And up, so it's north, basically near and north of Commercial there, up towards Sample, basically south of Coral Springs though. Coral Springs are in the warning, but I think our main area of concern is right in that area right there, right now. So once again, remember our tornado warning rules. Interior room, away from windows, if possible the lowest floor of your house. So that's kind of the rule for the tornado warnings. Let's see what else. We have people talking here. So thanks, appreciate the compliments. I didn't feel so good earlier when the stream didn't get started, but I think we're back on track now. We're doing better here. Is there anything else going on? Let me check real quickly here on our anything else on tornado damage, reports of tornadoes. Not seeing anything right now. National Weather Service, what are they saying? So, so they will sometimes talk in great detail when they're not overwhelmed, which they might be at this point, when there is a storm that they're getting concerned about. Okay, it looks like our tornadic circulation here is about to cross or crossing the Sawgrass, so moving out into the Everglades. So that's good. Let's get this one on out of here. And let's zoom back out here and see if there's anything else. So as I was saying earlier, a little bit suspicious looking there coming into Pompano Beach, not quite as much as our other storm. Let me change the radars here. We're using Fort Lauderdale. Let's go back to Miami. So a little bit suspicious. Let's check once again for any type of rotation there. Yep. Okay. So folks in Pompano, Country Club Isles, as well as Lighthouse Point, Hillsborough Beach, be ready to take shelter because this could be a possible waterspout coming on shore here. You can see the rotation there. This is coming from a long way away from the Miami radar, so it could be that it's higher up in the cloud, but when I say rotation, it's that signature right there. So once again, that's northeast Broward there with the rotation. So be ready to move inside interior room away. Let's check a couple other radars here. Away from windows, lowest floor. Not showing up as much quite on the radar here. The purple areas here, that's indeterminate. We can't tell what's going on there. And I report that the tornado watch remains in effect. Let's go back to the radar here that is showing the reflectivity. And once again, now this is that's a suspicious signature right there. So once again, Terramar, as well as Country Club Isles, northern parts of Pompano Beach, eastern parts of Pompano Beach. That's along A1A there, kind of that area right there. And let's do one more check. I mean, keep swapping our radars here because what we're doing is we're kind of like we're looking like this and we're looking like that, and we're kind of moving around, looking at different angles and stuff. Thanks, camera, for keeping up with me. So there is that signature. Kind of that little bit of a hook-like signature as well from almost 3 different radars. Tornado warning continues for Collier County. A tornado was located near, the thunderstorm with a possible tornado was located near Naples, moving northwest at 20. Folks on the west coast there. Okay, there's a better signature now showing up on the Miami radar. That's shooting it from a long way away. We're pretty high up in the storm here. And let's check a few different radars here and see, kind of looking at it again from different angles. Still kind of indeterminate from the Miami terminal Doppler, and it looks like there may be a little bit of a signature in there coming in on the Fort Lauderdale radar. So let me back out here. That's a pretty good signature right there. We'll wait to see if the National Weather Service says anything on that. Another way we can look at it, it's something called spectrum width. I'm not going to go into detail what spectrum width means, but spectrum width basically just shows where the air is very turbulent. To kind of sum it up, and you can see the air is very turbulent there with that area of possible rotation. Let's also check to see, this is what we call our debris, kind of our debris tracker. That's kind of also, it's kind of hard to say if that's what we're seeing. We're pretty far away here. If it is, then it would be a pretty big water spout. So once again, this is northeast Broward now. There is no warning currently in effect, but folks right there along the coast, you know, it wouldn't hurt to kind of just to get into your interior room. That is becoming stronger now. Our signature there, we've got some brighter greens, and so that could be a water spout coming on shore there near Lighthouse Point. So if you're in Lighthouse Point, Crest Haven, Park Haven, Hillsborough Beach, areas right around there, I would say, you know, it wouldn't hurt to kind of get into your interior room and let's let this thing get past us here. let's keep flipping the radars here and kind of seeing if we can see any better angles of it. Because, and the reason I say that is because okay, that's just an update here. Tornado warning for north central Broward. That's the storm that was near Tamarack that has moved on to the northeast. Let me just double check on that. So I'll show you guys what I'm looking at here on these alerts, and you keep hearing those ping pongs in the background. So this is 8:44, so that's right now. Tornado warning remains in effect until 9 for north central Broward. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado near Tamarack, moving northwest at 20. Let's go back over there. We'll look at that storm real quickly. Folks in Lighthouse Point, northeast parts of Pompano, Hillsborough Beach, be on your guard for that storm right there. And let me just change one thing here. Let's take one last quick look to see if we can see rotation from the other radars. No. All right, so let's zoom out here and go over to our tornado warning storm, where once again we don't see any significant rotation from at least the Miami radar. There it is. It looks like it's over the Everglades now, so I'm not quite sure why the National Weather Service mentioned Tamarack once again. Do we have anything in Tamarack right now? Let me see. Right over Tamarack? No. So that may have been an error there, but we don't have anything right now over Tamarack. Looking good in Tamarack. So we're going to focus our attention back here, northeast Broward once again. And shows up best on the far away, powerful Miami Doppler radar. Let's check our, let me put the shear markers back on. Yeah, well, there's your rotation. Sometimes the shear markers get in the way, and especially when they're that big. Let me see if I can make that smaller. And I apologize, guys, for my voice going up and down. I'm trying not to go hoarse here because I think I'm going to be talking a lot for the next 2 days. So, okay, so we've made that smaller. That is easier to deal with. That may be too small. Okay, so once again here, that little marker, sorry, apologize. That little marker there is an indication of rotation near the storm. It may not be the rotation itself, but it's rotation near the storm there. And now when we dealt with this with Irma, and I know many of you who were here during Irma, so Irma arrived on that Sunday, and we had the tornadoes on that Saturday, the day before, and it was kind of the same thing. Irma was coming in a different direction, kind of, but we had tornadoes, and kind of in the big scheme of things, the tornadoes, when they hit, obviously they can do significant damage, but they're almost like. And let me zoom out here. Let's get back to the storm here and kind of talk more about that for a second. So these tornado warnings, they're a big deal, but they're not a big deal for everybody. Hurricane here and the hurricane core, that is a big deal, and that is a big deal for everybody in the path of it, and that is a big area. So I likened when we were talking about Irma and we had these little tornado warnings, it was like comparing the tornado warnings like bee stings to the bear that's coming, because the bear was going to get a much bigger area, and the bee stings unfortunately were bad in certain spots. So kind of that's kind of our perspective here in terms of the tornado warnings. Of course, we'll keep you up to date. So I'm in Tampa area, kind of let down that we seemingly will get a tropical storm condition. Obviously, we don't want a Cat 4. So we're not sure of that yet. And as I was saying a little bit earlier, if you are looking at that and you are here, it's not going to take much, or it wouldn't take much, maybe some kind of wobble here. Or what if when it gets up here, it slows down and then crawls up the coast? That's a possibility. Maybe not this approach where it comes directly into Tampa, like straight into Tampa, but the possibility of it slowing down and going up the coast is a possibility. So Tampa, you are not out of the woods by any means. In fact, if I hadn't had my shutters up yet in Tampa, I would still be putting them up for Tampa. So, and for those who have been through a hurricane, trust me, you would always rather have the near miss than the direct hit. You can ask anybody that has been through a bad hurricane. I would rather put up my shutters 9 times and be ready for that 10th time when I have the hurricane than to not put the shutters up and get the hurricane hit. So it's kind of just the way it goes there. So let's talk a few more questions here, and then I think because it has quieted down a bit, I'm going to take a brief break here. I'll leave the stream up though. We're just going to leave the stream up because I'm kind of learning here. Guys, I'm new at YouTubing. I've done this for 2 weeks now. Unfortunately, you are my test case. Hopefully you're enjoying what we're talking about and doing here. And with that note, because I read this blog on YouTube and they said, make sure you continue to remind people to like, subscribe, and get notifications, and also ask people to share the videos. And because apparently what that does is that elevates your status in the YouTube hierarchy, and more people can see you, which means that hopefully more people can see the important message that we're talking about here. Once again, Naples, it's Naples. I said yesterday or even this morning, you've got to get your shutters up in Naples. Got to get your shutters up in Naples. Let's see what else. And at this point, once again, it's just too early to speculate. You know, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities here certainly, and it wouldn't take much to the left of the track there. Look at that, we're almost lined up with the track for it to go to Tampa. And here's kind of, I'm about to become philosophical with you. The thing with hurricanes is that our models are not good enough yet to predict them with enough accuracy to tell who has to prepare with enough advance notice. Preparations take a while. Let me just check that. That was up from the National Weather Service there. So tornado warning for north central Broward will expire at 9 o'clock. Okay, so that tornado warning. So no tornado warnings now in Broward. What was I talking about? This is the problem with doing this so much, and you being my test audience here, and hopefully you're a good test case. Maybe I'm a good test case too. Quick question here: how fast is it moving? So let's go back to the advisory, and I'm going to stick around. We've got 9 minutes. Let's stick around to the 9 o'clock update here. That'll be a position update, and then we'll drop off here. So this is going to be the position update. And this was as of 8 o'clock, 120 mile an hour winds, moving north-northeast at 10, and the pressure continuing to fall there, 180 miles south-southwest of Punta Gorda. You can see we plot the extent of the tropical storm conditions. That's the yellow area, and the hurricane conditions, and that's through the whole advisory. And you know what, let's see, who's that for? Okay, Collier and Hendry County, so on the west coast. Let me just see what the locations are. Felda and Cary. So that's Collier, northern Collier, and northwest Hendry County. Tornado warning there. I'm going to have to turn that volume down on that. That's starting to shock me now every time I hear the tornado warning alert. So moving north-northeast at 10. Earlier the National Hurricane Center was saying north at 10, but it's turned enough now to the north-northeast that it's moving north-northeast at 10. Let's go through the advisory real quickly. So there we are overnight tonight, tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, Thursday afternoon, Thursday night, Friday afternoon, and then Saturday afternoon there. So that's the whole thing. And if you're just joining us, you can ask everybody else, what does he say about the cone? The cone, because that there you're looking at, doesn't look like the cone, does it? The cone only tracks a point. It's a great tool for tracking a point. A point, it's a dot. That's what the cone is tracking, the center of the storm, a point. But we know that hurricanes are much bigger than a point. So the cone, while it's a great tool for tracking the center of the storm extends well outside of the center. And that's why I created that graphic there. A couple quick questions I see for our timing here. What about our timing? Let's do the quick timing graphic here. So, and I need to turn those colors down on the watches and warnings. I don't know how they got turned up so high. In fact, well, let's just go through this timing graphic here. So there's the tropical storm conditions. You know what? I can't show that because those colors are so bright. I don't know how those colors got so bright. So behind the scenes, if you're at a TV station and they're doing hurricane coverage, this is kind of what you're talking about the whole time. You're looking at graphics, you're adjusting things. Let's bring these values down here to more reasonable levels so we can see what's underneath the map there. And most people at TV stations, most meteorologists and weather people, they do their own graphics. They don't walk in and there's their graphics waiting for them unless, of course, you're a superstar. So there's the tropical storm warnings covering much of the state. The yellow area there, that is the extent of the tropical storm winds, and the clock is there in the upper left. You know what, I'm going to get rid of this tornado warning that's crawling here because we do have a little bit of I have a problem where the warnings, for some reason, it says it's in effect until, but then unfortunately the time is wrong on when it's in effect until. It's adding like 6 hours or something. That's not going to happen. Okay, so back to where we were here. There is the tropical storm conditions in through the Keys, and then going forward into time. So there's midnight tonight, tropical storm conditions coming up the Keys. It's into southwest Florida. It's approaching Sarasota, into Fort Myers and Naples. That's midnight tonight. So the storm, the winds are going to continue to come up here and continue to spread out from the storm. Here we are tomorrow morning. So there's 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. You can see the tropical storm conditions. They are now over much of South Florida. I'm going to drop that there because that's kind of distracting. And I'm going to drop a few more of these because I think everybody knows what's going on. So now you can see the underlying map a little bit better here. So there are the tropical storm winds into Miami-Dade and coming into Broward tomorrow morning. And coming up the coast now into Tampa. And this is based, of course, on the 5 o'clock advisory. There we go forward in time. There's noon. And you can see all of South Florida as well as the Keys now in the tropical storm conditions. And sometimes what happens is, especially when you're not really close to the hurricane center, is you get squalls with tropical storm conditions and then a little bit of a lull. Another squall with tropical storm conditions. All right, so that's noon tomorrow. There we are tomorrow afternoon. There we are tomorrow evening. Tropical storm conditions are still over all of South Florida. So it is still windy. It is still stormy. It is still flooding. It's still bad over all of South Florida. And of course, it's much, much, much worse over the west coast of Florida, closer to the center of the hurricane. Going forward here, now we're at midnight. So this is midnight Wednesday night, Thursday morning. And you can see we are still in South Florida, Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beaches, in the tropical storm conditions. The Keys, at least according to this, are starting to see a cessation of tropical storm winds. That's the way we talk about it there. That is an advisory update. I'll show you that in just a second from the Hurricane Center. Here we go forward into time. There is 8 a.m., 7 a.m. on Thursday morning. The conditions now improving in Miami-Dade and Broward slowly, and deteriorating in North Florida, and still very, very bad in the middle of the state there as it goes north. There we are at noon on Thursday. Things continuing to improve from south to north, but still very, very bad in the middle of the state because the hurricane has slowed down. 6 p.m. Thursday evening, and then going on to midnight Thursday night, and then Friday morning finally starting to pull away from west central Florida. So this is really a long duration event. And then there is noon on Friday. Let me go back to that one graphic. We got the 9 o'clock little update here, and let's talk about that real briefly here. It's just going to be what they call a position update. So there it is, 9 o'clock, northeast at 10. Still says 180 southwest of Punta Gorda. Let me see if that's what I've got here on the location. 180 southwest of Punta Gorda. So I don't know why the 8 p.m. position also had 180 southwest of Punta Gorda. Let me show you what I'm looking at here. So no more tornado warnings for the moment. so that's good. And let's show. So that's it's called a tropical cyclone update. We get these every hour as long as the storm is within radar range, land of radar range. And let's read it real quickly here. Key West International recently reported sustained wind of 50 miles an hour, so that's tropical storm strength with gusts to 63. A private weather station, I've got all kinds of alarms going off now, a private weather station near Cocoa Plum Beach near Marathon reported sustained winds of 38 miles an hour. So we're almost to tropical storm strength there, gust to 47. All right, guys, so what I'm going to do here is take a break. I'm going to leave the stream up and take a little break here because we're going to have to eventually get ready for the 11 o'clock advisory. But let me put that up there. I'm going to leave this up here, and I'm going to disappear for a little while. Of course, if there is any more tornado warnings, I'll jump right back on right away. And if there's any bigger updates, I think everything is kind of going, marching along here, so to speak. So I'll see you in just a little bit. Thanks for sticking around. I will do the next update. If there's no more warnings, we'll start back on at 10:30. Okay, 10:30, getting ready for the 11 o'clock advisory. So until then, I will let you just enjoy the radar for a while. Okay, guys, hopefully you can hear me. And here we are now waiting on the 11 o'clock advisory. The second it comes in, it will go out and you will see it right away. Unfortunately, I didn't quite get the 5 o'clock advisory, which was a big advisory. I don't know that the 11 o'clock is going to be that big, but let's talk about what we know so far and then where we're going from here. And once again, as soon as that advisory comes in, we'll go ahead and take it. So here, first off, there is where we are this evening, and there have been a lot of tornado warnings out of West Florida. Apparently there has been some damage in the Naples area. There was some damage near the North Perry Airport there in eastern parts of Pembroke Pines as well. Let me drop, first off, drop that tornado warning for the southwest coast, and then I'm going to drop the advisory there at the bottom because we'll just wait for it to update on its own. So here's where we stand tonight, and remember, if you were with me earlier, we were talking about that we don't want this line right here, the way the storm is going to bend. Anytime that line bends, like you can see it kind of bending there, it's bending like that. That means that the storm is still tracking right of the National Hurricane Center's forecast. And in the short term too, no less. So the storm has not resumed more of this northeast motion, rather, not northwest, northeast motion. And without it resuming the northeast motion, if we kind of do like a long-term average there and we don't change anything, that's very close to Fort Myers, Port Charlotte area. So we're going to have to see when the advisory comes out here what the thinking is going to be, because we're running out of time for it to either turn to the right or turn to the left. Now, as far as South Florida is concerned, we're glad we're running out of time that it can't turn to the right suddenly. We're feeling fairly confident that we're not going to, well, I felt confident practically the whole time once we kind of got into crossing Cuba here, that it wasn't going to come to southeast Florida. But unfortunately, it looks like it's going to come very close to southwest Florida. And if you were with us earlier today at 10:45 this morning, 11 a.m. this morning, 11 a.m. advisory, I was really stressing that folks in Naples needed to get it done, get your shutters up and get all your preparations done, because it looked like Naples was in a significant threat. And I think that's going to be the case. There is the 24-hour position on the forecast there. And also now we're starting to come into play here is this going to be a Tampa event like the models were earlier showing there? And the chances, just because of the chances that it's going to suddenly swing back to the left, they're decreasing. They're not decreasing rapidly, but they are decreasing. So the chances of a storm tracking to the north of Tampa Bay are decreasing. The chances of a storm tracking over Tampa Bay as well are decreasing. They're not zero. And so everybody that's kind of in their places with Tampa Bay, we're not done, okay? I don't want anybody to start, popping the corks and stuff like that, because we are not done. We've got to get this storm past us. I never feel good here in southeast Florida about a storm until it's passed, and then even then you kind of have to watch. We had, of course, Hurricane Jean in 2004, which came up and then did the loop and came back and hit Palm Beach. So we've got some time here. I want to say for basically north of Tampa Bay, we're feeling better. In Tampa, we're not feeling worse, and we are feeling worse south of Tampa. So basically Manatee County, Sarasota County, as well as Lee County, and then on down into Collier County, Fort Myers area, Port Charlotte, Naples, Marco Island, Bonita Beach, Punta Gorda. Unfortunately, Punta Gorda, you're threatened as well. Sarasota, Venice, all up and down the west coast there. So it's something that's a big deal. Trying to candy coating it is not going to help. In the southeast coast, we've been dealing with tornadoes this evening. Tornadoes over the Everglades. Tornadoes pushing into Palm Beach County. Now moving on up into Martin County. We've had tornadoes also in the Naples area. Reports of damage there, and you can see these lines of thunderstorms are continuing to develop, and that's going to be the case as we go through the night. The wind profile is exceptionally favorable for storms to rotate. The storms happen to be moving kind of across the wind just a little bit, and that's creating this twist in the atmosphere. And if you look carefully here, you can kind of see those storms literally look like they're kind of spinning as they're moving there. So that tornado threat's going to continue as we go through the evening and overnight hours here, through the overnight hours. Let's talk about what's been happening with the storm itself. This is Ian, of course, and let me drop the track here so we can just see cleanly there. So earlier, and I'm gonna stop our track here, and I'm gonna back up about 6 hours so we can kind of go back here, because I want to really talk about what has the evolution with Ian here. So we're about back around close to 5 p.m. there. So at that point, we had the inner eye wall that was still present, but it was beginning to decay, and we were starting to see the signs of the outer eye wall coming in there. And sometimes what happens is that the inner eye wall, when the outer eye wall takes over, the inner eye wall will kind of rotate or orbit inside of the bigger eye wall. I think there was a little bit of that. I didn't see a whole lot of that, but basically what we have witnessed this evening here on the radar is a eye wall replacement cycle. So I'll put it into motion here, and you can see the inner eye wall holding on there, and then it's kind of given it up and it's come apart. And literally pieces of the inner eye wall are getting spun out into the outer eye wall, especially there at the end of the loop. I'll shorten it just a little bit here, but it's pretty, you know, from an atmospheric, from a nature point of view, it's a pretty incredible thing that happens in hurricanes. Unfortunately, they're incredibly destructive and upset us greatly. So there it is. You can see the eye wall replacement cycle, and then what happens is once again a reminder, we're waiting on the advisory here. Once it comes in, I will put it up right away. Make sure all my graphics are ready to go. Okay, we're good. So right here at the end, what we can see now is we're getting these little wave breakdowns in the storm itself. So we've got, it's almost like mesovortices, which are small rotations. And I think you can make it out. There's one little dent right there, and they're balanced around the center there. There's one dent there. There's probably one buried in there on the west side, and there's probably one up here on the north side. The problem with this is a lot of times where you see some of the most extreme damage as these things are rotating around the center there. What happens is that these contain like excessive wind gusts. So as they're coming around, they're doing very bad damage. I'm kind of talking at this from almost a sterile point of view here, as just looking at it as a meteorologist's point of view. But unfortunately, you know, it's a very, very bad situation that we're watching slowly unfold here. I remember when I first started studying Andrew, I was just thinking, watching some of the videotapes of Andrew in 1992, of how it must have felt, you know, to sit there and watch this coming towards you, and there's nothing you can do. Well, fortunately, we can prepare and evacuate and things like that. We can't turn the storm, and that's one of the things that we live with here in Florida. So there it is tonight. That's the position. The hurricane hunters have been in there. In fact, I think I can put up one of the recent passes here. This is the Air Force hurricane hunters, and so let me first update it, and then I will punch this up here and show what they've been finding. So all those barbs there, there's some barbs in there, wind barbs. Now this is at flight level. This is where the plane is flying, and they're flying around 10,000 feet. So those barbs in there, those are where the really strong. This is over 113 knots in there. So this is definitely Category 3, if not even into Category 4. We'll have to see if that's the finding here when the 11 o'clock advisory comes out. The hurricane force winds are beginning to expand out as well. They're not as far out on the west side from what we can tell from the initial part of the pass here, but they extend out farther to the northeast. We did have a hurricane vortex message. You can see when he went through the middle there, 952 was the pressure. Let me pull that up here. Let me go back to the radar for just a second and pull that up, because there was a lot to glean from that. That vortex message. So got so many buttons on my screen right now. So here's the vortex message, and what it shows is the pressure, the wind, and this is the big thing here, that C30. That's the eye characteristics and the eye diameter. Now, earlier today when we had the inner eye wall, it was about 18 miles across, and now it's 30 miles across. So almost literally the hurricane in ways has doubled in size in terms of its eye wall, its destructive wind potential, and the worst part of the hurricane. So that's something that unfortunately is the result of an eye wall replacement cycle there. That increase in the width of the storm there, and also this expanding out of the winds. Question there was, is it still moving to the? It's moving north-northeast. You can kind of make out the motion there. I'll put the previous track and the track from the 5 p.m. advisory on there, so you can see that motion. These lines right here, these up and down lines, are longitude lines. These sideways lines are latitude lines, and you can see it is moving. Well, it's clear. You can see it's moving from basically lower left to upper right. So does that motion continue? It hasn't abated yet. It hasn't stopped. It hasn't resumed this more northward motion. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say it. I think the Hurricane Center may need to shift their track once again a little more right, because the center is right there. If it maintains the track, the direction from the earlier advisory, it would be something like that there. So that is Port Charlotte, Boca Grande, Fort Myers, Bonita Springs, and because it's a wider storm now, if it doesn't shift anymore, those are the areas that are going to bear the brunt of this. And the timing on it looks like tomorrow afternoon from the previous advisory. You can see it on the satellite here. There's been some big blowups of the thunderstorms as the eye wall replacement cycle has been taking place. The eye got a little bit clouded there for a little bit, but it's starting to clear out once again, also a sign of intensification with the hurricane there. Sarasota and then on up into Polk County as it goes kind of northeastward across the state. Of course, I'll show you that all when the advisory comes in. I don't want to show you the 5 o'clock advisory because there's probably going to be some changes here. So while we're waiting on that advisory, let me just zoom in quickly on South Florida here because we've had lots of action in South Florida as well. And let me set up this screen as well too. So I'm just tracking everything. You're tracking. So we've got some new indications. Well, first off, we've got this tornado warning that's over here. That is over in Collier County. It's near 75. Let me stop the looping here for a second. It's been kind of a rough evening, especially in Naples. We had some tornadic storms move through, and you can see they're kind of lined up here. So really, really heavy rainfall, and that is draped across Alligator Alley there. Some pretty heavy rain right now on US 27 coming into Broward County there. There's a little rotation marker, but I don't think there is much rotation with that storm. We'll take that off for right now. You can see the storms extend down into Miami-Dade, especially West Dade, along the turnpike there and east of Chrome. And all this activity is moving at a pretty good clip to the north and northwest going forward into time there. So, so that's kind of it in the near term here. We had that kind of outbreak, that one squall line there, that one line of storms that's moved on up into central Florida now. Up here, there's a tornado warning up in, I believe that's St. Lucie County, maybe Martin County as well, under a tornado warning with that activity that moves to the north. And you can see this is kind of moving now slowly to the north here, all this heavy rain and things like that. And then let me give you kind of just a big kind of loop there. Let me take off the tornado warnings that are tornado warning boxes there, and kind of the big overview picture there. So so as we're waiting on the advisory here, let's look quickly at the models and just kind of survey things. One of the things that we've been talking about for days is that there's this wind shear that is just to the north of central Florida and North Florida. It really shows up. So that big dip in the jet stream, the big trough there it is right there. The outflow from Ian comes out and accelerates quickly to the northeast because of the assistance of the jet stream there. But the jet stream is also, as it's dipped to the south, it's also going to start eventually putting pressure on Ian, not only to go a little bit to the east like it's doing northeast, but also it's going to tend to want to make the storm lopsided. The shear is going to, in effect, push a lot of the heaviest rain and heaviest winds onto the right side of the storm, which is the storm side of the storm that's approaching Florida, and the left side of the storm is going to get kind of smaller and smaller. You can almost make it out there. It's already starting to take place just a little bit. There's a little bit of a erosion over here on the west side. So there's also dry air that's over here that's going to try to start to work in. Now, storms without a lot of shear. Okay, there's the advisory, so let's get right to it. So the advisory is in a little bit early tonight, 10:48. The whole advisory package is not in yet. This is the forecast advisory. This is what we built the graphics off of. And in just a second here, when the public advisory comes in, we'll see the crawl come up and also our location thing there. So here's where we stand tonight. We've got a Category 3, 120 mile an hour hurricane. The pressure pretty steady since it's gone through that eye wall replacement cycle, and the motion north-northeast at 10. The specific motion, and let me look over here on this computer, is 15 degrees. So when you think of a compass, it's 0 is north, 90 is east, 45 is northeast, 15 is kind of north-northeast, which is what they're saying there. So 15 degrees is the average motion probably over the last 6 hours or so, not taking into account those little wobbles there. You can even see the wobbles now that we're getting the hourly updates. So let's go through the track here since we've got it. And the watches and warnings for the most part aren't going to update. Let me quickly just go through what has changed. Changed with this advisory. Tropical storm watch from Waterspout Sound, that's up in northeast Florida, south to Santee River, has changed to a tropical storm warning, so that doesn't affect us. Everything else is the same. None of the other watches or warnings have changed. Everything else is the same. All right, so let's go forward here. There is the 8 a.m. tomorrow position. There's the forecast, Category 4. You can see now by tomorrow morning the tropical storm winds are coming on into Miami-Dade and Broward. They have pushed on up through the Keys as we've gone through the night here, and they're approaching the East Coast metro areas of the Palm Beach County. Also on the northern end of the tropical storm conditions have pushed up the coast into the Tampa area. So weather going downhill in Tampa, and because the wind, which goes around a hurricane, is what we call cyclonic or counterclockwise, it's possible that we could see what we saw with Irma, which is a drawdown of Tampa Bay, where the water goes out of Tampa Bay. Now, you always have to be careful because when the winds shift, then the water comes rushing back in, and if the storm gets north of Tampa Bay, then that water is going to come in and there's still going to be a storm surge threat. Is it going to be the storm surge threat that accompanies the eye wall and the center of the storm and just to the right of where the storm tracks? It's hard to say. Well, let's play the advisory out here and we'll kind of see where that stands. So there is the forecast position for 8 p.m. tomorrow night. So we're looking for a daytime, and I use this word very, very sparingly because a lot of people focus on landfall. Where's the landfall going to be? The landfall is a meteorological definition of when the center point of the storm crosses the coast. It doesn't mean when the worst weather arrives. It doesn't mean a lot of things. And people will say, well, it should be landfall at midnight. Well, you're going to be hit by the storm for 6 hours, the 6 hours leading up to midnight. So landfall is just kind of a reference for when the storm crosses the coast. We don't care about landfall as far as we're concerned. We care about the whole area of the eye wall, which will arrive before landfall and do the most destruction. You can see the hurricane force winds extending into central Florida by tomorrow evening, and Fort Myers, the Naples area, into the hurricane force winds as well, extending on over almost all the way to the East Coast by tomorrow evening based on this advisory. And the forecast intensity is still at Category 3 at this point. So I think the thinking probably here is that now that we're talking about a bigger hurricane, usually small hurricanes, and when I say small, I mean small small eyes and eye walls, they're a little more fragile. They will intensify more quickly and they'll weaken more quickly. But now that we've doubled our size in our hurricane eye wall here, now there's the consideration of a bigger storm that's going to be less likely to decrease in intensity as quickly. So that's of course bad news. That's something we don't want to hear. Let's go forward here into the next position. That's 8 a.m. on Thursday. The forecast intensity has dropped now to tropical storm, but probably strong tropical storm but basically this whole red area here is really going to experience a bad day tomorrow night, and into Thursday as well. So that includes Naples, that includes Fort Myers, that includes Sarasota. Tampa Bay is on the edge of this, but let's say it does include Tampa Bay for now, because the wind field is going to be very, very strong. And as it's weakening, the wind field is going to also spread out. There's going to be in that red area massive, potentially long duration power outages. And that's why we do our preps, and our preps are for us after the storm has hit, so that we can hold on until help arrives, until services start to come back up. That's what we prepare for in terms of our hurricane kits and stuff like that. Also of note here, and I know I drilled this into the ground, but that little white line there, that is the hurricane cone. And I'll ask everybody again, does it matter if you're in the cone or out of the cone? Well, in this case, no. I mean, the worst of it might be in the cone, but you can see even over here, hurricane conditions are extending outside of the cone there, and you can see the tropical storm conditions extending well beyond the cone. Let's go forward here, and there we are, 8 p.m. on Thursday, and then a little more forward here. And you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to real quickly switch off of this, and that'll get our crawl going, because sometimes it gets a little bit stuck. So there we go. So there we are, into the Friday time frame, and Friday evening, possibly a tropical storm going up the coast. Now, a little bit different here. Before, we were seeing more hurricane force winds offshore. This advisory has the storm not as strong as it exits the northeast coast of Florida there. This is unfortunately, very, very similar to the Charlie track, with the caveat that this is a bigger storm than Charlie. Charlie was a pretty compact storm when it came into Charlotte Harbor, Port Charlotte, and Punta Gorda. This storm is going to be bigger. So that's kind of no good news here in that with this situation here. Let's look at the latest watches and warnings. As I said, they hadn't changed. There again is the whole track, and the main thing that we're worried about, the conditions. So tropical storm warnings for just about the entire peninsula includes Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, and the Keys. I still don't think we're going to see hurricane conditions here in South Florida. I really never did, and I don't think that changes now. We're going to see some stronger winds of 40 to maybe even up to 50 miles an hour, and some gusts of the 60 to maybe 70 miles an hour. And remember, in Irma, we had gusts to over 90 miles an hour. So if you think about Irma in 2017 compared to this storm, I don't think we're going to see quite as much damage. We're going to see damage. We're in Palm Beach, Miami-Dade, Broward, and the Keys. We are going to see some damage. There are going to be some trees that come down. There are going to be some power outages, and in some areas they're going to last maybe for more than several hours, maybe even a day or so. That's for southeast Florida. Farther to the west, in the red area there, up the coast, the hurricane warning and the hurricane watch areas there, all the way up into Polk County, and now on over into Osceola County, up into Orange County. Orlando is included now in the hurricane warning, and back into the Tampa Bay area. So this is the area where we're going to see the widespread, potentially long-term power outages. It's amazing to think that you could be without power for 2 weeks. I was in Wilma in 2005. So that's a real possibility here, is that we could have long duration power outages. And then on top of that, we've got this flood threat on top of that. So I think folks in Central Florida who are watching tonight, you really just kind of need to be ready to kind of get in the mindset that you're going to probably be staying put during the storm, which is going to be terrifying, and after the storm, because it's going to be hard to get out, because there's going to be trees down and there's going to be flooding. And so that's why we always talk about, that's the hurricane kit. That is the hurricane kit right there. It is to get you through after the storm, to wait until help arrives and the recovery efforts start beginning. And this is looking like, based on this would be a big recovery effort. It's going to take a lot to get Florida back in shape after this storm here. So let's talk about the storm surge threat again. The storm surge warnings go all the way up to the coast. And remember, you flee from the water, you hide from the wind. So, and that hurricane warning area, by the way, I think I mentioned it, Shutters in the hurricane warning area. In southeast Florida, this is not a shutter event. If you feel comfortable putting the shutters up, and it's kind of late in the game now to get the shutters up, but if you feel comfortable getting the shutters up, then go ahead. Don't do anything that's going to get you hurt. That's kind of where we are here in the preps phase of it here, because the wind's going to start blowing, the squalls are coming through, and if you're handling big objects or things like that, it's kind of tough. The storm surge watch continues for South Florida there. Now that's the cone outline there, and I'm just going to kind of use it to illustrate here. So we think that the center is going to come somewhere between there, right? And that is just to the south of Tampa Bay. So let's say that center kind of does get up into Sarasota here. There is still the potential that after the storm passes Tampa and is over here, that the winds as they come around are going to want to pull water back into the bay. So there is still a potential for storm surge flooding. And I think the evacuations, you kind of deal with what you're given at the time when you have to make the decision, because it takes time to get people out of evacuation areas. You can't just say, you guys, we need to evacuate, do it quick, 6 hours, you've got 6 hours. It'd be nice if we could do that based on the models, be able to say, you specifically need to evacuate, you don't, but our models are just not that good, and the uncertainty has been crazy in this case. So let's talk about the timing graphic. I've gotten some requests for that in the past. I appreciate that. This graphic kind of shows where the storm winds are going to be, and you can see the tropical storm squalls now are already on the west coast. They're already in the lower Keys. I think at Key West at the airport there was I want to say it was a 67 mile an hour gust. It might have been not quite as high, but the Keys put out lots of information. So I'm seeing reports of damage from a tornado in Palm Beach County. We had the tornado near North Perry Airport, damage there. There was damage near Nob Hill and 595 in the parking lot. There were a lot of trees and branches around. Let's see what else here. So I'm not seeing any of the latest Keys reports, but already we're seeing those tropical storm conditions and things like that in the Keys. So let's move forward into time here very slowly. There we are at midnight, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. There's sunrise tomorrow, and now it's pretty bad here in southeast Florida. It's windy. Every now and then we might still get a lull between the bands, but it's windy and it's not pleasant at all. There's probably going to be street flooding in many locations, and that goes for the Keys as well. Not a good morning. If you don't have to go to work, if you can work from home, by all means, that's my recommendation. You can see also, let me back up here because we'll pay attention to the west coast of Florida here. So there are the tropical storm conditions coming into the Tampa Bay area by Wednesday morning as well. Starting to reach over to the east coast there into Martin and St. Lucie counties, and there's 9 a.m. All of South Florida is in the tropical storm conditions, and this also now is about our closest approach here in South Florida. This is when it's going to be blowing pretty good during the day tomorrow and even into tomorrow night. All right, stepping forward there, that's Orlando, and that's 1 p.m. Excuse me for a second here. So that's when the onset of tropical storm conditions, according to the latest advisory there. Cedar Key by 4 p.m., Gainesville by 7 p.m., and of course these are approximate times. You want to have anything wrapped up before these times. And then after midnight into Jacksonville there. And then you can see here now, on this latest advisory, the winds, the tropical storm conditions are now beginning to pull out of the Keys there. That's midnight tomorrow night. And then by 6 a.m. on Thursday morning, it looks like, at least according to the latest advisory here, it's pulling out of South Florida. It's still going to be windy, but the weather is gradually improving. And then you can see that as the storm weakens, the tropical storm wind field diameter collapses here as the winds are coming down. So, and there it's obviously that forecast from the Hurricane Center, and I didn't get a chance to read their discussion or anything, is calling for quite a bit of intensity drop there, but not soon enough after it crosses the state. Thank you. 71 miles an hour in Key West. Appreciate that. So let's kind of see where you guys are, and let me put the radar back up here. That's kind of the most compelling picture there with the track. So there is the new forecast line. You can see it's very close to Fort Myers there. You know, it's running out of time to kind of make any more deviations to the right. It's possible, but it doesn't have a lot of time left to make those deviations. All right, so checking in with everybody out there. Let's see. Let me zoom back here a second. No, it's not moving towards Miami. I mean, it's moving towards Florida, but it's kind of like, go across the middle of the state there. Naples. I don't think Naples is the target, but you don't have to be in the middle line there. I mean, let's think about this. So if we kind of extrapolate the eye wall, let me stop it here, make it easier to draw. If we extrapolate the eye wall, which is over here, and parallel it to the track forecast there, you're through Fort Myers, and you're very close to Naples as well. And if you extrapolate the left side of the track here, with the current diameter of the storm, you are very close to Tampa Bay. You're well up into Sarasota County, so you don't have to be hit by the center to really have a very destructive hurricane here. Because remember, it's not that center point. It's wide. It has width, and it's going to be coming along and unfortunately crushing trees and doing a lot of damage there. Let's see what else. Hope folks from Fort Myers, Naples already. Yeah, let's hope so. So okay, I think that's it, guys. I think we're kind of dialed in here. We checking in tomorrow morning. Let's see, a couple more folks chiming in here. Larger storm, but it appears to be taking a similar track as Charlie. That's true. It does seem to be taking a similar track to Charlie. The lesson from Charlie was, if it looks like it's going up to the north, but you're still in the, excuse me, in the uncertainty area, prepare. And I hope everybody did that in this case, all the way down to Naples. I was really jumping on Naples. Thanks for watching in Sunrise. Everybody be safe, of course. I'm late. Any change to the 11 o'clock advisory? Please, there are no changes to the watches and warnings as far as South Florida is concerned. Miami-Dade, Broward, the Keys, Palm Beach, still in the tropical storm warning. And the West Coast from Naples north and northeast, still in the hurricane warning. So pretty much, we're getting to this point that I call we're kind of getting to the baked in the cake part of the storm, which means that we're not looking at the models as much, because the models for the distance that the storm has to go now, how far away it is in time, the models aren't going to show us anything that's going to make us think, oh, it's going to make a big turn, or oh, it's going to suddenly weaken. The baked in the cake means that it's all those ingredients are in there for what we're going to go through here. And now, unfortunately, the sad part is we have to go through it. And I'm afraid it's going to be very painful for much of the Sunshine State. Thanks for watching from Plant City. Appreciate it. And you guys are welcome for all the information. Sunrise. I know lots of folks kind of spread out across the state, which is nice to hear there. You are welcome for all the information, and thank you for missing me on the air. It just seemed like it was time for me to try something new, but I didn't feel I could give up talking about hurricanes. So this is my method, my way to talk about them, as well as hopefully keep you guys informed. So let me just do my little reminder thing that I'm supposed to always do, which is if you liked the video, click the like button, subscribe for future videos, and get the notifications by clicking the notification bell, and then you'll get an alert, I think email or something like that. I don't know, maybe on your phone about the storm. So everybody have a good night here. It's going to be a bad day tomorrow. Hopefully everybody can get some rest and some sleep, and we will see you tomorrow. I will be up. We'll be on at 5:30 in the morning with the 5 a.m. advisory. So I will see you then.